Hello, everybody, and welcome to May, right? We're in May? May office hours with Žiga,
Hello.
Tomaž, and Branimir. And of course, we got the famous Amos, as
As
always.
usual.
Yeah. What's up, buddy?
I'm
How's
here.
everyone doing in this crypto winter we're doing in the last week, huh? How's everybody doing?
Is it a winter or just like an
Eh,
inquisition or
it's
something?
like a storm passing by or something.
Cold front.
Yeah, a little cold front coming in, but we're all right. So all right, let's jump into this, and I'm gonna put this one first, just because I know it's kind of the big one in the community. But so this BSI Pharma Solution that we saw them announce the other day, right? Sounds awesome, sounds cool, but is there any hints of actually who's using it currently, or is that something we're still waiting on something like BSI to come out and kind of give us more? I know a lot of the stuff has to come from the other side, So, but is there anything you can speak to? Because that's obviously the most exciting thing we saw in a little while. So I thought it'd be cool to nerd out on it a little bit.
Yeah, I guess I'll give it a go first. I mean, yeah, it's I don't think if it's just OTs in a while. I think it's in the entire industry with, in terms of how really permissionless technology is being deployed, at least from what you could see in the broad strokes described in that case study or in the white paper. It shows what really the idea of using DLTs within the kind of like mass adoption or mainstream industry would look like, right? So I think that's really again from already what was written there shows the direction of the realization of what was what's really is the idea of how to properly deploy the DKG. And in terms of what we can say, I guess we can reiterate that what is written in the document is kind of the direction that you can start thinking towards in terms of the deployment path. It's definitely not something that's just a concept or something like that. It would just be very kind of dry, some sort of a material. But as you rightfully also pointed out, the anything really tangible and anything really in terms of any type of names or more concrete information does always come from the other side. It never really has been us putting that out first, nor will it be. So I think we definitely points to something that we can look forward to as a community. From our side, I mean, I'm really excited. Like this is it's setting the bar. Like it's gonna be like so many times even before, but right now it's just this constant discoveries of how we're improving and how the deployments get more and more tangible, even more new industries figuring out how to really leverage this type of tech. It's really exciting. It's really exciting. So yeah, from my side, I'm like all smiles when it comes to this, and I can't wait that even in the next iterations of the monthly office hours, hopefully we'll be able to keep that subject amongst our conversations here for a while, and there's going to be plenty of new stuff to chat about.
So you do think we'll probably hear more, though, right? Like from
I'd imagine, yeah. So it's just again, building out of what has been there, and the level of concreteness that's described there. It's definitely pointing to more things to be discovered, more things to be communicated, and things for us to go over then and go into the details of it.
Well, even like in Žiga's tweet the other day, and I saw you had India in there, and they're mess right, like this they're on some hard times right now over there. So I would imagine any kind of solutions like this, anything at this point, especially a system like this, would help really get stuff more in order over there as much as you can.
Yeah, it's definitely not something that is a kind of a short-term deal. We have been working on this for the last half a year, so you can imagine how much, but it's also not the only thing. Frankly speaking, I didn't even want this to be somehow coming out as an information the last couple of weeks, because The good things are keep on coming out as the implementation deals, as the new products are being launched. But I would rather see this come out sometimes at the later stage, where partners are able to communicate even more, even the names, even everything. But it's a kind of a sweet problem to have. You can see there are a lot of things happening in the background. Products being deployed. I think it's not even known how product looks like already. Although it's being deployed already. You saw India a use case. India is second biggest country in the world in terms of population, and the solution being deployed not only in India. India is just a use case, but essentially, I think even in we're talking about majority of countries in development, where we are going to see this particular supply chain stretching into. So it's really a kind of a actually international deployment that is already not in paper, but actually already there. Sometimes I would rather see more information out, but we will never be the ones communicating what exactly is behind the scenes, because needless to say, there are NDAs. Also, it is not also in our interest to communicate too much, because we see that our partner competition is looking into what they can deploy, what they can offer to pharmaceutical companies. And pharmacy right now, pharma industry is becoming very, it's coming under spotlight because of the COVID crisis, because traceability and better visibility and the way medicines are being applied to patients is being put under a lot of scrutiny, not only because of vaccines, also because of some other reasons, because of diversion of the products that are oftentimes going to certain markets, but they're not supposed to be there. So there are a lot of challenges that are being addressed this way in a very, very holistic manner. If you were able to read the document, you saw plenty of other already existing processes mentioned there. Also other already existing systems like BSI SEM, BSI Connect. So these are the kind of the systems that are already being used by a lot of companies. And what OriginTrail is doing here, it's actually not just, it's not being used as an aspirant to a problem. It's actually being used as, a paradigm shifting platform that is underpinning an entirely different way information is being shared. So it's completely normal that the information is going to come out in pieces. I also heard someone saying that we should be better at explaining the way OriginTrail is being used, but this is almost impossible. I think we can always come to a point where we explain, or partners explain, the way things are being deployed, but then you cannot go further because technology is very much beyond state of the art, and we can only wait and see what partners are going to communicate to us.
Yeah,
but that said, I would rather see this information coming out a little bit later, even the information we had coming out this week.
It sounds big enough where we're going to hear about it either way. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't need like an official announcement coming out. It sounds like the way it's being used, I mean, it's going to be kind of hard to miss, right? So yeah, I think that's
I think it's important to talk about this. The style of communicating new and truly beyond state of the art implementations is rather different than what we're used of in the crypto space, where you have like Cointelegraph reporting that someone put toilet paper on, so it doesn't matter. But when you're dealing with the real world scenarios, it's never flamboyant like that, because it should not be. If things are real, they're a little bit more what's the word? Modest.
I know what you mean. Yeah, modest. Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Right.
Actually, I have a couple of things to ask on this topic as well. Well, not really ask, but just talk about. I guess it would give a little bit more understanding. So when we talk about BSI Connect and all these different BSI solutions or systems that they have, just to be clear, if we think from the perspective of like a technology stack, their applications would be sitting on top, and beneath that would be the OriginTrail decentralized network, allowing for unit traceability or traceability at the unit level based on these GTINs and so on and so forth. So for them, it's a complete restructuring of their, I guess, internal database or querying scheme or whatever they've got going on for their applications. OriginTrail is just opening up a new layer for the entire ecosystem, pretty much. Just wanted to ask if that's pretty accurate to say.
Yeah, but definitely. It's not an incremental improvement that we're making together, not only at BSI, but also other partners. It's always essentially a paradigm shifting of how data is being managed, how data is being exchanged with partners across supply chains. And these things that typically take time. As I said, we've been working on this particular case for the last half a year. And even in the last half a year, we cannot say more than what has already been communicated by the BSI. But there is we're definitely scratching the surface here only.
Right.
It's just a little shiny detail that we all saw.
All right.
Awesome. Have you had any other Polkadot projects reach out to you regarding collaboration? And it's an interesting question because I know it seems like a lot of the Polka projects are all working kind of side by side in some way, just because you're all building on this same platform. And you got some cool projects out there, like Moonbeam, for example, like doing some really cool stuff, and like being able to bridge over projects from the Ethereum side to the Polkadot side. But so have you had any of these Polka projects reach out about the knowledge graph and say, hey, this is really cool, we don't know how we're going to use it, but we would like to leverage this, or anything along those lines?
Yeah, we're actually having, we've had a few meetings prior, and we're having some meetings after the Decoded conference that basically put us right there in front of everybody to see in a little more detail on what the impact of OriginTrail really is. So we're having several follow-up meetings after that as well. So yeah, it's quite a tight community with Polkadot, and everybody is pretty much doing work on a segment that's important. For example, segments like chains like Akala, which is the DeFi side, and then Kilt, which is focused around DIDs and verifiable credentials, which is something obviously very related to what OriginTrail is, and but others as well. And Moonbeam has also been a team which has been very resourceful, and we've been in touch with them quite a few times due to them being the most advanced in terms of EVM support, which is something that Starfleet or OriginTrail Parachain will as well have. So so far there's been a lot of communication with them, including Parity and including people from the Web3 Foundation. And yeah, it's I cannot say much in terms of like what can happen, what will and can happen there, but we are having discussions, and it's one of the core premises of the Polkadot ecosystem is that we are having all of these chains somehow interconnected, interoperable, working together. So it's the idea is that we will definitely see these solutions interacting in some way, and we were super excited to get that going as soon as possible and seeing what we can all build together, which is a little different than let's say how things normally would work on let's say when it comes to Ethereum, because you would then have something like that happen really well for DeFi, but for other projects, you wouldn't have been able to see that much as this interoperability hasn't been available in the way that Polkadot provides. So it's going to be really exciting. I think the Polkadot is going to be kind of like the building blocks for much more than just DeFi.
And it's funny because at least in my own head, the way I see it is, you guys are going to be one of the first people actually really leveraging Polkadot for what it was designed for. So that means any of these new projects coming in, they're almost going to be kind of looking at you, too, because you're going to be, there's only going to be a select few of these that are really even doing something at first, and you guys are going to be probably, let's be honest, you're probably going to be the most used chain or parachain from an enterprise standpoint. So not only do you get this, you know, you're going to have this whole new world of exposure of all these different projects coming out and seeing what you're doing, and their name's going to be right there. And I'm sure they'll want to tap you for, you know, so it's great exposure for the team, I would think, in the project as a whole, being one of those first, you know, trendsetters in the Polkadot ecosystem.
I think if you look at the way knowledge graph is gaining popularity, it's been like hiding in a shade for years. But you see, Google, NASA, all the most important, all the best companies are using knowledge graphs in one way or another. And OriginTrail is the first technology offering decentralized underpinnings to the knowledge graph technology, which is pretty exciting. And we did, you know, when not only within the scope of the knowledge graph, but if we move towards the enterprise use of blockchain, we're getting inbound demand from the Polkadot entities that cannot handle yet enterprise, and it's coming to us. So that's one of the interesting examples. They're not yet there, and hence they are, you know, just opening doors to us. Next week we have we have a meeting with one of the most important food and drug authorities in the world, to give them more ideas as to how knowledge graphs can be used to better trace essential products. And also you saw within the Polkadot ecosystem, there is not a lot of mature projects, not only within the enterprise sense, but, you know, in general. So it's pretty obvious that OriginTrail is offering a very much appealing option to use knowledge graphs for multiple purposes, enterprise, or even to allow users to better trace what has transpired in certain blockchain. So possibilities are endless. Like we said, you know, multi-chain is our direction. We are also extending collaboration, or at least extending the way tools can be applied outside of Polkadot ecosystem. This quarter, we also plan to release documentation and frameworks for chains like BSC and also Matic to implement decentralized knowledge graph on their network. So we're looking to extend capabilities of decentralized knowledge graphs, both in the Polkadot ecosystem and also outside.
Awesome. Yeah. So you were saying one of the largest food regulators, you got a meeting coming up. I'm assuming that might have 3 letters in it, and that cannot be named. Let's go, Amos. You want to take this next question, actually?
Yeah, actually, I was gonna go there, but we're already in the theme of Polkadot, so we could probably skip ahead into the next one and ask more so about the crowd loan for Kusama and Polkadot, the auctions. How are you? Well, I guess the big question is, we know that you have to basically, you know, lock a certain amount of tokens up and basically vie for the community to really get the chains locked in. And with what was released, it seems like it's do or die for a parachain. Well, not do or die, but because we still have the isolated network in its form and whatever we can do, but we need a parachain. So how is the auctions going to be secured for OriginTrail? Is that basically set in stone? What's going on with that? The community is really asking questions.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair as well, right? So it's a big part of the integration process is the crowd loan, or basically the entire auction process. So it's not only the crowd loan, but also the entire mechanics around it. So definitely we are putting a lot of effort towards making that. It's, again, you can perceive it solely as a mechanism or like a process that you have to go through and somehow execute it. On the flip side, it does offer a good way to align interests again. So find those that see value in supporting OT as a parachain. So this time as really as the parachain network. And that's why it's not really as, and we, you know, definitely fall within that bracket where we like to think along those lines, is how to create alignments that can really provide benefits to those that see and want to support this. So it's not a straight answer because of that, and you have to take a lot of moving parts into account. So that's why what you can expect though is to have a proper structured kind of a document or post coming up which will describe this in much more detail. At the moment we have a, you know, quite a few already. Well, it's just drafts, even more concrete things that are either in working mode already or are being actively discussed, and then kind of putting on a final polish. Ideally, with we will do that, and there's going to be not again just the Trace Labs team talking about it, but hopefully also bringing on some of the partners that can help this smooth this process even more, and really have it even more amplified, or make it again from the process perspective, make it as seamless as possible, but as well from just the pure exposure, since this time around it's again obviously OT community, but even more so we are addressing, similarly to how Branimir was speaking before about how the technology itself is important and can be valuable to other projects within the Polkadot ecosystem. Similarly, OT is entering the Polkadot or Kusama communities here, delivering new value. So this also opens up an opportunity for OT to get exposure and to get to allow basically an alignment between those communities and OT. So I think that's if we look at it from the perspective of growing our family, rather than just looking at how can we really align more only internally, which is also an important part, but even more so really looking at how can we engage or catalyze these resources or community members or partners outside of our current group, and invite them to join in and get them excited about the vision and mission and the deployments that are coming and the value propositions that DKG is bringing to Polkadot, and to let them know how this value is also getting captured within the parachain, and then how this value really kind of benefits also those that will take part in staking, not just the first one, but also delivering the basically a concept of how these can be sustainable across multi kind of on an ongoing basis, because obviously it's as you know, it's you are auctioning for certain amount of periods, up to 2 years, so this can, as that runs out, you need to make sure that kind of you have an idea of how this is getting funded in the future, and what we definitely believe is that we do create the right alignment, and the value proposition is very strong for a parachain, and obviously the utility value of this technology is super high. So from just stemming from that, there's that value that can be used to align with those that are providing the DOT or the KSM for staking. So again, sorry not to go into too much details, but just like in terms of what's the thinking process behind setting up these last decisions around the crowd loan, and as soon as those get more set in stone, we'll put up more information, and of course also be welcoming some of the feedbacks on what will be communicated.
So speaking to the same question, first, as far as timeframes go, so are you looking to, when we talk about expectations is Q3 to have a parachain on Polkadot, when do you expect to have a parachain on Kusama? Because you obviously have to go through Kusama first before you can go to Polkadot, or even Rococo. Do you see Rococo happening this quarter? Maybe Kusama happening this quarter, but then Polkadot next quarter? Is there any kind of time frame for those?
Yeah, so for Rococo, that we already put that in the, or Žiga was speaking about it at the event. So that's planned for Q2. So that's something that we, looking at how far Starfleet has come and how we're working with Parity as well on even over the course of the last couple of weeks. It's the ambition is to have a test and deployment as soon as possible. And then it comes really to whether KSM or Kusama versus Polkadot. So obviously you guys were tuning in the Decoded event for sure. So you heard like what's they're thinking about the two networks. So it's like it is a decision that needs to take place. But yeah, it will definitely be involved in or included in that crowd loan for sure process. But in a way, it also comes down to the timing. So they haven't really communicated that precisely. They only mentioned the number of parachains that are coming out at this point. So there is a little bit of kind of another moving part here is whether how fast really Kusama will release those parachains. There are some certain kind of assessments of when this can happen and how fast then really the auctions will take place, and kind of then aligning that with our roadmap, as well as aligning the value propositions of Kusama versus the value propositions of Polkadot, right? So yeah, like after really combining all of these things together, we will be able to make a more precise decision in terms of which direction is best to be pursued. But it's like in a way, it's still new tech, and it's new communities and it's new practices being established. So a lot of these things we're actually going to be shaping it together, but also looking at in terms of what's happening outside of outside of OriginTrail and trying to adapt it.
I mean, that's also a very important point. I think a lot of people, well, I guess may not pay attention that it's actually new, and you guys are actually building out all the rules together. Like everybody's still learning here. So I think, yeah, I understand that completely, and I totally agree. There's only one way Jason and I don't get walk out of this with our lives. We need to ask this question. So in the event of, like, let's say we don't secure a paratrain, or we don't get one of the, I don't know, we don't secure enough funding or whatever. Is there a plan, or is there some sort of thought process in place for that?
Yeah, there's always backups that you can kind of fall back to. At this point, I don't feel that with the amount of opportunities that are being presented from Kusama and Polkadot's directions, that really be yeah, we should be a really, like how to say it, a very, very good candidate, like high on the list of being able to secure those spots. So in ideal of course world, we wouldn't be looking at any alternatives, because kind of the direction that's set here is really that is just about the mechanics, right? So how are we really going about it? Technology itself, again, Starfleet's it's getting mature, so there's fallbacks that you can always kind of go to and deal with it. But at this point, the main focus should be on making sure that these parachains are executed as precisely and as because all the efforts that are being put towards that, none of it is taken away of being able to do anything in alternative. So it's like it's just this is the most optimal way that we can pursue it. And at this point, I'll let Žiga and Branimir as well jump in on this one. But yeah, I think that I feel pretty good about the direction that's set out at this point.
Yeah, let me continue on that. From the technical standpoint, we have Starfleet being originally developed as technology that's supposed to run standalone, and then we have, because it's being built on substrate, the way that it's being driven is basically it's mature enough for itself to be self-sustaining, as well as the actual parachain logic being something that we have actively been working on in parallel. So essentially running, and somebody asked, I think you, Amos, mentioned, when could we see our Rococo implementation? We're talking about weeks here, because we're actually, in terms of running parachain code, we have an internal running parachain version of Starfleet. So there's going to be a certain sequence of events. So first, an internal testnet that will be basically not Rococo relay chain, but like our own laboratory relay chain, together with the first beta testnet in this case. And from that moment on, moving towards Rococo, we're already in discussions with Parity team for this. And then from that moment on, which it should be actually within weeks, then from that moment on, we're looking at going further, Kusama and Polkadot. And should any of this, let's say we need a plan B, the plan B is that the technology is already ready to be standalone. It's we're keeping that track. It's not going to be kind of like a dead end. It's going to, all of the code is basically, most of the code is the same because the way we've been working on it. So any sort of changes that need to happen on one code base will be transferred to the other one. And basically we always have this as a back option, as another backup plan. In the future, parathreads are also something that are interesting, because they're basically parachains, but with a little different type of mechanism. So
it's more pay as you go.
Pay as you go.
Yeah, it's just a different method of payment.
Yeah.
So there's different types of things that we can do because of the way we have taken the path so far. So building out something standalone, then making sure that it connects to a parachain. So now we have essentially all of these tools in our belt that we can just pick out and see. But like Tomaž said, the idea here is not to rely and like look back into the rearview mirror so much. It's rather to focus on the path ahead and make sure that we get this sorted as a community, get this parachain auction ready and blast it off so that we can launch the chain on Polkadot, which if you've been looking at our RFC, it outlines quite a lot of benefits for why it should go in this way. And personally, I'm very excited because in this way, things that we mentioned previously during this session was all of these projects that then get immediate benefit from OT, all of these bridges that get immediately available, and the Polkadot team is looking at securing Bitcoin and Ethereum bridges for sure. So that's an additional set of things that could be done. And then all of the interplay between different projects. So this is something that we should all have in mind because it can significantly boost the utilization of the technology, the adoption, the power of all of these technologies combined together. So that's the way we should go. And I'm very confident that we will be winning this.
Whoa.
He's very confident.
I like that confidence.
You guys heard it here first. So, actually, this is a really good point because everything you're saying, I must say, you're not there to see the fist fights we have in the community chats, but we have them all the time. You know, we're constantly talking about what the team is doing, what we think is best. And our latest community conversation was really around marketing. You know, for example, the website says we are the supply chain project, et cetera, but the DKG is so much more than just supply chain, so much more than just Ethereum or XDAI or even Starfleet. So one of the main thing is how are we getting the messaging out? And I assume that throughout this process of releasing documentation for Binance, from Matic, and all these different ecosystems, you're essentially explaining more so the DKG than just supply chain, correct? So this is what the expansion of our messaging looks like. Just want to add that in there.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, there is always more than it meets the eye. Even the things that you mentioned are just part of the whole story. And we are honestly struggling sometimes how to position ourselves because the use cases are so wide that it's kind of pity just to stay within the supply chain realm. That said, when mostly payable opportunities arise for Trace Labs, the core technology developer, it is still the easiest to gain customers and users on the ODN by positioning as a supply chain project, which is completely fine. Even Amazon started with books, and that, you know, unleashed a whole wide array of services Amazon was able to offer. So it's always a kind of a tactical, both tactical and strategic question as to where to start. And supply chain is a very, very good way to start because you can then venture into many different directions. We are though expanding the marketing team currently. Also next week we have a meeting with an agency scheduled to very much refurbish the way OriginTrail, Trace Labs, and also Trace Alliance are being positioned, and that also entails the way websites help users understand how to deploy and for what purpose to deploy OriginTrail technologies. So there's a lot of activity in that direction, and we're looking forward to seeing how we can do things even better. But we need to be mindful that supply chains are a very, very promising direction, and because of the supply chains, we are actually able to offer solutions that are not only kind of native to supply chains, but also go towards protecting, for example, personal data, also towards knowledge economy, which is promising a lot of new use cases, not only for companies using OriginTrail for, let's say, traceability, but also you as an individual will be able to essentially spawn your own business using knowledge economy tools. So there are a lot of exciting developments, but we should always tread careful, because if we dilute the supply chain narrative too much currently, we might be jeopardizing the some very solid paying opportunities we currently have.
That's powerful.
Amos, did you want to ask that knowledge tools question? It seemed like it flows right into this.
Yeah, actually, yeah, we're flowing today. Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should get paid for this right now. Just kidding.
Yeah.
The next question is the value of the track token influenced in any way by the evolution of OriginTrail's knowledge economy or the knowledge tools? Now, we have spoken before about the K tokens and whatnot. So I guess this is more so, targeting the direct, price effects of not necessarily price like pump and dump, but what additional values are added when we implement K tokens?
Knowledge economy tokens, I think first off, they're going to prove that you can actually run a DeFi project with something which is backed with something more substantiated. And the knowledge economy is essentially going to prove to the world that we can offer knowledge-backed assets, crypto assets. And this, we believe, is going to be the biggest kind of leapfrog from where we currently are, where there's a lot of things that don't have substantial value attached to this new world, where OriginTrail is going to offer something tremendously different, which is knowledge-backed assets.
Great.
Maybe just to jump in. So the direct, I'm not sure, Žiga, if you can hear us. So
yeah. I'm just not sure about my connection.
You wanted to stop,
still hear me?
Yeah,
you go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, so essentially think of, let's say in direct terms, as obviously there will be more shared within the RFCs that are coming up, but essentially the knowledge tokens there are to extend the utility of the ecosystem, and that means extend the utility of Trace. So think of them being used in pairs with Trace in such a way that they can either have let's say a deflationary aspect to Trace, having the ability to lock Trace because of certain value propositions that you could use the knowledge tokens with, like for example, price discovery for knowledge tokens. And things where Trace is being used more in terms of for its additional utility paired with such knowledge tokens. And that's all coming to the OriginTrail parachain with Starfleet. The idea being that you're able to denominate value in Trace or have the ability to create access control based on a new minted asset, basically, and that this enabling you access rather than just representing that you're an owner of something, but rather actually being an active asset. So with a usual NFT, you would get like, people get quite often confused, like is it the image or like what is it that represents the NFT?
Yeah.
In kind of the art world, if you look at like traditional physical art, if you're gonna go buy, I don't know, something from Picasso from a major gallery, you're gonna get some sort of certificate, and this certificate, like you can think of an NFT in a digital world, like that's the NFT, and it's a little disconnected from the actual thing. Yet people are very excited about them. Now here you get an additional, much more powerful tool, where the powerful tool would be actual attachment of a token to a set of knowledge that is growing. And then it is active because then you can act on this knowledge. It's not just a random change of ownership, but it's rather something you can do on it. And therefore, these tokens interplay with Trace, which together with them enable certain things like that, and that affect Trace to be, for example, additionally locked, which is what I meant when I said deflationary. It's not going to be a deflationary currency per se. It's a fixed supply, but it's something that's going to be locking up more tokens, just as new data holding jobs are locking more tokens.
Awesome. has OriginTrail been invited to participate in the World Economic Forum's Cyber Polygon 2021 Supply Chain Attack Simulation Preparedness Exercise? It's in July. I have heard of this, and I've heard a few people mention it, but I don't know enough about it. But I guess, yeah, I mean, the WEF's doing, like a supply chain check simulation. So have you been tapped at all by the World Economic Forum to participate in that? I'm gonna guess no. But,
I assume not.
I don't know. I don't know enough about it. So, all right. Let's jump ahead. Is the team still working on a T1 exchange listing? Oh, an exchange question. I didn't imagine that. I didn't think that would pop up in this list. Yeah. So is the team still working on a T1 listing? And actually, a lot of these Polkadot projects now have a lot of eyes on them by these different exchanges out there. It seems. I know like even like Kraken and Huobi and OKEX. They're all kind of announcing their allegiance to a lot of these Polkadot projects. So, do you envision even the Polkadot ecosystem, the work you're doing there, helping with some of these T1 listings too?
Yeah, we see some exchanges are actively participating in promoting the Polkadot ecosystem. Some of them, actually all of them, tier 1. And we are actively also participating in the process of also exposing the parachain candidates. That also includes OriginTrail, of course, to be somehow involved within the kind of the umbrella process of the parachain auction for slots. Definitely, if things are successful, it's the exchanges that are going to announce who's going to be the first one that might support also OriginTrail in that regard. So we are actively we are actually being encouraged, and we have responded to that encouragement. But we're going to see in the next few weeks if those efforts are going to provide anything substantial. Until then, we cannot, of course, comment anything further.
Right. Awesome. But I mean, it sounds like there's a lot more headway there now. And like I said, I mean, you're out in the Polkadot ecosystem with parachains. You definitely have new eyes on you at that point. I mean, it's no mystery. That's just
the industry. Yeah, for sure. I mean, in the last week, I mean, we've all seen the way the whole market is responding, but this by no means that OriginTrail is in any way less active when it comes to expanding markets for the Trace token, which is the utility token necessary for OriginTrail to actually be operational. So nothing is stopping us, and nothing has changed so far. If anything else, this Polkadot direction and also the accelerated Polkadot integration have given us additional additional tools, perhaps street cred to get more market exposure.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I will say there's this YouTuber who I frequent. I surprisingly saw him covering OriginTrail, and it was because we were vying for a parachain. So I was pretty excited. So it's clear that, just by participating, we're getting a lot more eyes, be that from tier 1 exchanges, open community, YouTubers. So yeah, I would have to agree.
Yeah. I think we need to we can be very optimistic about the whole process, although once again you might not all feel that way because it's all red everywhere, but definitely OriginTrail has gained a lot of attention in the last few weeks. It's incredible, and this also was one of the contributing factors why we decided that we should be more optimistic and also accelerate the Polkadot vision. The main kind of feedback we got from the Polkadot in the recent couple of weeks was that we have the most to show. So we have the most tangible adoption. We have things that are being used by real users. So it's a huge encouragement for us, for the team, and also for the community.
Awesome. So is OriginTrail still on track to reach the estimated 100 to 400,000 jobs on the ODM by the end of the year? I remember that hockey stick graphic that we saw, not too long ago, where basically kind of shows the jobs, and over time with the TGS, as the TGS grows. So are we still looking about those numbers? Do those still seem like an accurate guesstimate if you had to guess? I know we don't know enough of what's coming in the future, obviously, but if you had to guess, do we seem like we're still on track?
Yeah. So it's been a little over a month since we enabled the multi-chain OriginTrail. What we have seen in the last month was more jobs, order of magnitude, more jobs than previously only on Ethereum. So the adoption or the demand for what OriginTrail has to offer is vastly surpassing the current capacities. So what we need to now make sure is that network itself is in a good shape enough, and this is where also we're touching certain not limits that are going to kind of going to be sustained very far into the future. But right now, it's not the blockchain or blockchains that are limiting the capacity of the network, but it's the size of data that nodes can handle. And Branimir is going to explain. I think he's very much eager to explain which updates are going to solve that. But the bottom line is we already have order of magnitude bigger number of jobs currently on the network as compared to a previous state, the single chain OriginTrail. Right now, when we remove this obstacle, definitely there is no reason why wouldn't we be on the trajectory towards 100,000 to 400,000 or 400,050 jobs per year, which are needed for the targeted total graph size.
Yeah, and just when you touched upon that, there's been a couple of questions from the community coming in Discord as well, I believe, in GitHub regarding certain bugs actually discovered. So we had there's two things that basically are currently suboptimal. One is bugs, and the other is in some improvement that we're working on. And really briefly to explain, the bug has been discovered actually while doing data pruning. The release of the data pruning feature is something that we've been preparing for a very long time, but the testing of itself in the real environment has proven that certain nodes have actual issues with pruning. And there's, first of all, not all of the data that needs to be pruned gets pruned. So we're working on fixing that actually in the coming releases. Some of it does, but not everything. And actually part of the reason being that the protocol itself has on occasion made the DC node repeat sending the data a couple of times. So you might have seen that for a certain amount of data, there's like a couple of times more usage. And this is a bug, obviously, that is fixable, will be fixed. And this is coming up in the next release, actually. So there's an expedited release that is 5.0.4 that is going to tackle these issues. So, so a couple of things happening here. First of all, a lot of more space being taken, so that's a problem. Second issue is a lot more data is being communicated through the network, which is also, making it a little, let's say, less
chatty.
Yeah, a little more chatty. And the problem with chatty is the more chatty it is, the more, the slower the
physics
stuff goes through, right? Yeah. So that's we're taking care of that, but there's also a more major update coming up, which is actually tackling the way the nodes communicate with each other in terms of data data availability. So maybe it's a good time to mention that as well. So there's been a couple of questions of how the actual application protocol works and basically what the pruning should do. And one of the things the protocol has started with and kept up until now was that a certain data set would be replicated across of a big majority of the nodes on the network, but actually only kept by a certain number of DH vault nodes. the other nodes keeping this opportunistically to actually potentially be the ones who replace. Now, as the network grows, then obviously the amount of this data grows on the network, and therefore it should be optimized in such a way that not all nodes by default keep, you know, as much as they can, so be greedy, but rather be more, let's say, optimal, so that you know, you conserve your space on one end and you have room for more stuff, while you still get an optimal, let's say, chance of participating in this in these potential lucrative deals that some of the nodes lose because maybe they shut down, or you know, they for some reason decide to go out of the network. So point being, not to go too technical here, is that there will be an optimization over the next period where it's going to be more localized. And this is a common thing that happens when with peer-to-peer networks, some systems that you might have seen before, like Napster and the other ones, which actually had centralized components. They also had to a certain degree, issues like this, which are really issues of broadcast. So in the coming period, there's going to be couple of optimizations that also are going to enable further more throughput on the network, and that's going to be something that's significantly going to improve the way it works and how nodes actually operate. So to somehow wrap that up in a more human readable format, we can expect some interesting updates coming to the nodes that will enable additional functionality, but also optimize the way the network works quite a lot in the coming period. So both enabling this growth, so that's something we need to do, as well as seeing this coming from projects that are on the way. So like Žiga said, we're very confident of this projection still. There's no reason to say that it's going to be anything else, rather than if it can even be even better with the recent engagements and interest around the project.
Awesome. I'm excited.
Definitely awesome.
Because that it gets asked a lot to us. So I mean, we're glad that, you know, people have an idea now. Business as usual. Things are moving along. So that's good.
I mean, that's usually what people want to hear. Everyone who wants to hear Branimir say it's all good, and then everything's all good again.
It's all good, yeah. Exactly.
The thing to determine sometimes that it's all good is you need to actually run it, and it's quite easy for someone being a technical person to, you know, build something in a lab and then say, oh, we got this amazing protocol, you know, but then nobody's, you know, tried to use it. And then when they try to use it, like we're human beings as well. We make things that are not perfect, so there's always things to improve, and one thing is to admit that, and which we need to do, and as well, you know, discover that, because you don't discover it until you try it, and that's
right.
basically it. There's no,
and I've used this example before, like, you know, as a network engineer, you know, someone who's built networks, like, you know, I could build you a great wireless network, but I'm not going to be able to really truly test it until I can have a load on it if it's actually working efficiently. You know, it can look great, you can have expensive hardware, you know, you could have followed every guide you can find in setting it up, but until you start getting thousands of people using that wireless network, you really can't simulate that. So I mean, I totally get it, you know, and that's for any technology, really.
Not to mention, we're running literally a one-of-a-kind, never before seen technology stack that the entire world is literally salivating over as it needs.
You're creating the playbook as you go.
Right. This needs to be done correctly, and it needs to grow. So yeah.
Yeah. We spoke with one of the, I think, top 30 crypto project according to CoinMarketCap. And they were boasting, they boasted kind of zero transaction costs, and their second premise and argument was, but we're not using token. Token makes no sense. I mean, they are not, they admit themselves that the clients don't need to worry about the tokens because token is not necessary for the functioning of the network. So this is kind of the audacity of the zero. We call it audacity of the zero because we cannot compare ourselves to someone who has offered zero utility token. We are comparing ourselves to those who are actually using the token in the network. And this is where you actually stumble upon serious and the more tangible problems But the good thing is we're always addressing these problems as we go. So the network itself is not a test network. It's being live and deployed by very reputable companies. And we as a team are being very responsive, always attacking problems, issues, one update at a time. And we're always aware of the problems. Also, where we get a lot from the community is through the Discord. We know we most often times learn about problems, issues from the community, and this is you know, the charm and the added value of what we're building here together with the community members, and also with you guys, the two of you plus the rest of the folks in the tokenomics and decentralization working group. Since we established this additional layer for determining what the updates should be, I think we have provenly progressed towards something which is even more applicable in real world scenarios. Just look at the immense efficiency gains that we have achieved by introducing multi-chain. So this is all being introduced not because we suspect that this is needed, but this is all because we have learned through actual use that is indeed very much needed.
Yeah, I really want to reiterate that this is the first time the world has seen this sort of technology. It's beyond state of the art. This is state of the art of state of the art. So like, it's gonna take some time. And I think that the more mature, experienced community members really are just diving into the network as much as they can, gaining as much information, as much knowledge as they can, and being able to see how they can replicate that later on, which leads great into the next question about the ambassadorship program that is about, I believe, about to go live, or whenever that's go live. I know it was scheduled to be something in Q2 or Q3, I think. So is there, some people are asking if there's any sort of technological background that's required for the ambassador program. You know, can I just be a graphic designer and design to join up and create graphics for OT, et cetera, stuff like that?
There is a wide area of skills needed in order for the ambassador program to be effective. And if we want ambassador program to be effective, we need two things. We need technical capability. So the people that are joining in should be either, you know, technically enough educated so that they help other newly joined community members or adjacent communities understand how OriginTrail can be used. But also, you know, if we want to tap into additional potential to increase awareness about OriginTrail, we also need people who are savvy of communicating through, you know, nice graphics. So we believe at this point that both aspects are needed, but we're going to have to wait for the first kind of iteration of the community ambassador program to comment more on it. Definitely, we're looking into something similar to what we did, I think, in 2017-18, when we also launched an ambassador program with the main aim to increase awareness about OriginTrail. So this is perhaps one element that might be similar here, at least to an extent, and where people who have certain design capacities to design things can find themselves in.
Right. Great. Moving along to the next question. So we do know about we're offering services to the rail industry, and we heard about, I think it was 7 or 9 new companies that had been or joining the ecosystem, the rail ecosystem. We heard about Siemens and such, but we haven't really heard any further updates since then. So has there been anything new to report with Swiss Federal Railways, that entire implementation, the whole rail network? What's been going on there?
Yeah, so essentially there's been quite a lot of data being tested and collected in EPCIS standardized way. So as you might have seen in the presentation, one of the presentations we had with Dominic from SBB, Swiss Railways, where he basically introduces that the first thing was to get up to speed with EPCS, and they are finalizing that across all of these partners, which basically means the structure is ready, but you need to make sure that all the tiny bits are correct to match. So in that sense, data curation is really happening. And then a lot of this data is actually then being integrated together. So there are several things that Swiss Railways are doing with OT tech, and that is track rail parts, but also track, and I'm not sure if I ever mentioned this before, but track events like weldings. So there's us normal people that do not do with the rail industry, that doesn't really trigger our senses, but actually when they're welding tracks, these weldings tend to break. And if this breaks, then the issue is, a train might go out of tracks and then the whole hell breaks loose, costs a lot. So what they want to do is minimize risk, track exactly how they've done these weldings across all of these partners that are doing weldings. And they're trying to actually use the knowledge graph for predictive analysis. So they want to figure out when do these weldings break based on the data. If they can find correlations, like is it about temperature, is it about a specific type of a tool used with a certain something else. And what they really want to do is, first of all, get all this data together, make sure that they got it from the right partners, that it's all in the right structure, and then analyze it through using the knowledge graph. So it's one of the things that is going on. And then the thing with these repositories is that there's already existing EPCS repositories that they want to connect to. Now, I cannot say too much because of obvious reasons, but the project is growing and expanding through multiple use cases, and we're actively working with the Swiss Railways literally on a weekly basis to bring this to the level that they need. And they're really kind of a player that is pushing the neighboring rail industries that to actually go and implement similar things, because they're the ones who are they are the ones ahead of the state of the art, showing everybody why why EPCS is important. They should go that way. And all I can say is that we've been with several meetings with the other companies that are interested in seeing how they can implement it, and basically implement the same structure and the same repository. All of this being really primed to hit the ODN as soon as possible.
Yeah, I mean, also it makes sense, right? It's all connected. Like, so why would one railroad not look at it if railroad B is looking at it? Because they're all part of the same network. So
exactly, and your train from Switzerland is gonna, go through Austria and then end up in Germany, and then somebody's gonna repair it there, and and then you want to know exactly what's going on there, and in that sense. But also, what's important is that these organizations are very traditional. So I think maybe Famous Amos mentioned at the beginning something like ODN requiring companies to change up a lot of things when it comes to how they handle data. With a small correction, that is true. They do not change; they actually extend. So the idea is that the systems that they already have, that everybody's used to using, it's maybe 10, 20 years, of them using something like Salesforce or some ERP systems, databases. They're going to continue doing their own thing, but basically a knowledge graph is kind of like a virtual way of representing all of this data, and having it stay physically in the same place, while the knowledge graph is actually being kind of an overlay. And just as ODN is the overlay for all of these, then you need unit knowledge graphs in a way.
So it goes from application, ODN, their traditional SAP or whatever software management systems they have, and we're like basically like cleaning or funneling their data into something that makes more sense, or whatever.
Well, it's really refining and making
refining
knowledge out of data. So think of it as when you it's probably not the best example, but like if you're thinking about I don't know, the fuel you pour in your car is not crude oil that is taken out of the land. Like there's some, well, not just this refinement, but also the ability to observe it as a resource. And I encourage everybody to look up resource description frameworks within which is really the standard by W3C, which explains, it gives data some properties that makes much more out of it than just being, just a CSV file or something random as data, but it rather gives it identity. And that's why decentralized identifiers are important, and all of this structure that is important for another machine to understand it. And that's where the ODN brings this sort of middle layer between applications and between what data already exists. And what really everybody wants to tap into, kind of like there's a new term coming up called the data mesh, and that is very similar to what the ODN looks at like, however, in a more powerful way, because the traditional data science space still hasn't recognized blockchain for its power. While on the other hand, the traditional blockchain space hasn't realized all of this power of the data science.
Right.
And OriginTrail decentralized knowledge graph really is the only one playing in both fields, enabling both benefits of one and the other. And it's something that the companies are starting to figure out.
Right.
From the perspective of someone like Swiss Railways, they're looking for a solution to a problem. They don't necessarily care if it's a decentralized knowledge graph underneath. What they need to do is to retain certain value propositions, data ownership, integrity, trust, and for them, they don't think of data science blockchain. They think of, I need this, and we need that problem solved. But from a perspective of a data scientist who is building solutions, the decentralized knowledge graph is very interesting. And that's why the knowledge graph conference we were at was very successful, because we've had so many follow-up calls, and there's a lot of opportunities coming out of that space since OriginTrail has been exposed to them. Because a lot of like I said, a lot of the data science industry is not, they don't figure, they probably heard more bullshit about blockchain, I have to say, than real stuff. And then people actually get a little, pushed back. They're like, we are the data scientists, but you're telling me the blockchain can do X. It's
right.
That's kind of like the downside of the whole thing. But once you explain it to them in the right way, and when people understand that, all right, this is actually working, this is something we could use, so we can take the tools and extend what we already have, because it's intended to be an extension, not to be a replacement, then all kinds of light bulbs start turning, because everybody is realizing that they can just use this as an add-on on what they are already building. And if this add-on is powerful and if it gives value, then why not? So yeah, it's been calls, a lot of calls.
Yeah, calls are good. This one, yeah. Have you ever had contact with VeChain? What do you think of their technology? Well, I mean, it's all about multi-chain, right? I mean, so at some point you got to think VeChain's going to want to connect to the ODN. It's going to have to connect to the ODN somehow. Has anybody from VeChain knocked on your door? Or just curious.
Interesting enough, I'm actually interesting to hear. Has anyone actually ever reached out?
I don't know if they believe in GS1 standards though, so I don't know if they would reach out. I'm not sure how that works, but we'll just go to the next question.
That's probably best.
Node size. We already kind of talked about the pruning, so I'm gonna skip that one. That's already been addressed.
You guys might see us jumping around because you guys actually went through
a
lot of the questions in discussion.
There's one in the Q&A as well.
Yeah, right. Yeah, where do you get Žiga's jumper from? Baby Gap.
2017. Time travel, and then you can get it.
Yeah, you're gonna get a time machine.
Actually, yes, I found one here that's actually very important. A lot of people, myself included, wanted. I guess the last episode we spoke about more people coming out from the working group, the new established working group, because we heard about the researchers and all of those great people, great technologists and so forth. We also did hear that we'll be hearing more from the organizations and the institutions that have joined this amazing working group. Is there any conversation as to an update on that?
Yeah, the working group is open both to academics, which have now in larger number joined the working group. Organizations have also expressed interest, and right now we're in in a process of confirming that interest, so that we actually have people who have formally made a concession that they're going to be shown publicly, talking and also contributing to the first off the interoperability, the report on interoperability solutions in the market, and then in the next step framework, interoperability framework that's going to help elevate visibility in supply chains. So organizations, private and also public, we are hearing from John that not only kind of tier 1 organizations, but also government representatives from different parts are expressing interest to join the working group. So we project that this is going to be a very, very diverse and rich initiative. Then again, John has more information, and
Right.
I'm sure he's going to be able to secure a lot of interesting players.
Yeah, in fact, I was talking to John on Twitter, and he mentioned that they actually had another top specialist. I can't remember what field he said, but the research group is literally constantly expanding with more and more and more experts. So yeah, pretty good growth. I don't know.
We're quite active as well, so it's like there's weekly progress being made. It's looking quite interesting. So expect more things to be communicated as well.
All right.
Cool. When a data set that's published gets close to expiration, is a data creator able to extend the holding time of something like, say, BSI checks a certificate and determine it meets standards for X amount of time? I guess that's what someone's wondering is, can you just extend a job that's already out there, or do you have to create a new job?
At this moment in time, in order to do that, it will be creating a new one. But it's one of the things that we have considered as a feature in the backlog. So basically something that could be done. And it's not a really hard thing in terms of verifying that it can be done. It's just it hasn't been one of the priorities so far. But essentially, short answer is there's a way to do it. It's not exactly the way that the question poses, but that is also one of the things that's on the list, for the feature list, because it's something that is that if the feature proves to be interesting to the users of a protocol, would also come on the feature roadmap.
Yeah, right now it falls under kind of nice to have, not need to have. So
there's a workaround, so like you can republish and it'll be fine. So
the need to have are really the ones that we discussed prior. So making sure that things can be smoother, more efficient in terms of data, and really the ones around RDF and the Sparkle support. Those are the things that people are really asking about, and that's not there yet. So we're expediting those.
Gotcha. Someone just asked a question in the chat in the Q&A section that I thought was pretty good, so I'll just read it real quick. Is when do we hear more about OpenPKG and Global ID? Is there any should we be hearing more? Maybe come from the Global ID side at some point about leveraging the ODN in any way?
Yeah, sure. In the recent months, we have gotten support from them and also from some other interesting institutional players. At the level of Trace Labs, what we're going to see most probably quite soon is more announcements and expresses of interest and more information, more kind of specific information on how Global ID and Trace Labs are going to be working together to further protection of personal data. Also, their ecosystem, Global ID and hard Diaka ecosystem, which is including a lot of other technology builders. We're going to be seeing how OriginTrail and Trace Labs technology can interoperate in that ecosystem. So definitely, right now we're just scratching the surface with Global ID. So not much is known to this point. And definitely it's on our kind of schedule to improve or get rid of the information asymmetry currently in action between Trace Labs team and the community. I guess one of the main reasons why we haven't talked much about it is because we have had a lot of different announcements and information releases in the past weeks. But going forward, definitely we're going to find more time and bandwidth to communicate more information on that topic as well.
Has the information around the liquidity pool LPing for SFC been finalized? I know the last time we spoke about that, you said, Branimir said the working group would have to come together to put together some numbers and whatnot and talk more about the mechanics. Has there been any progress? Or are we still waiting for some sort of, you know?
It will be within the RFCs as well, right? So there's a few of them that's lined up on the knowledge tools,
right?
Liquidity provisionings, and that is a part of that. And it's also, you know, with kind of becoming a part of the Polkadot ecosystem, you know, you got to be observant as well as to what type of things are available and what can we leverage to make this as optimal as possible. So it's definitely a living thing. So it's not something that would be kind of, okay, you know, decided, I don't know when, and then it's just going to be put down on paper. It's rather constantly develop, kind of evolving mechanics that ideally would be, you know, as good as possible by the time they hit the network. But yeah, it will be RFC. So, and discussed within the working group and then also publicly. So.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah. Sounds good.
How often are job prices and track updated? It seems that some similar jobs before and after the crypto crash of this week kept coming in the same track value, in lowest USD value. I guess basically, I know at one point we talked about maybe AI kind of at some point, some sort of AI being implemented in order to, you know, adjust these prices. But something like this, for example, I mean, how does someone pushing a job know to use more track or less track? Is there anything in place or currently, or is there going to be something in place that kind of makes this more even with the market conditions?
Yeah, so the main tool there to come is really the AAP plugin, the automatic price adjustment. And it's the way it works is really the way you would be able to manually do it, but to manually do it, you would it would be obviously really painful, hard.
Yeah.
And essentially, let's explain it really briefly. So if you're a data publisher who is going to publish a data set on the network, there's a certain set of requirements of the protocol that makes this publishing require a large number of DH nodes to respond. Therefore, using the material of these responses, identities particularly, to solve a certain solution on the network. Now, what does that mean? Well, if not enough nodes respond to you, you cannot, basically, there's theoretically very little chance to solve this, for your node to solve this thing. Now, if you're not offering a price high enough, then the nodes will not respond, and you will have a very low number of responses, if any, therefore not being able to publish the actual data set on network. So it would really, the DC would see that from their angle as something that just, you know, they cannot continue and they cannot finish the publishing, so they have to go again. And the AAP plugin would basically allow the DCs to, you know, get to the point where they're always successfully publishing, but they're not overpaying. While on the other side, the DH nodes who are responding in any amount that there are need to be responding at a number high enough. So not the whole network, like I said again, but a subset of a network which is enough for the DC to solve this problem. And this problem is really mathematical. So it's basically, in a way, a proof of work problem. It's a very much more efficient proof of work problem than Bitcoin, but it's proof of work because it provides this randomness. So we get a random, we get a solution that is hard enough to solve without enough market interest for that, if that makes sense. So if not, so right now it seems that if the price, nobody has changed any of the parameters while the price has been moving on the token, meaning that the parameters are still satisfactory, that enough nodes answer to the DC, and the DC can solve this computational proof of work, basically. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. Yep. No, it's great. Yeah, I think we pretty much went through all the questions now.
Yeah, I mean, we could end on one more. We haven't heard from, I guess, any updates with OriginTrail and GS1. has there been any further communications, further things in the pipeline, or anything that's open to discussion right now?
Yeah, even that working group that you're part
Yeah,
of, Brana,
the working
for the
group and-
EPCIS 2.0 and stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good question.
Yeah, so the EPC,
Actually, sorry, you go ahead, Brana.
yeah, EPCIS 2.0 is coming up nicely, and there's been more frequent meetings lately to get the standard in its final form. And essentially, there's a couple of new things that are being introduced in the standard that people are trying to make sure we get right from the first go, in a way. Whenever that happens, and observe that through various engineering teams that would be like either working together tightly, but also teams like the EPCIS working group, which is a bunch of different people from different companies. When you're kind of at that end, it's a little hard to say like when something is final. So I believe we're getting a little stuck in this process. Like if we were to release it, at any like point in the next week or in like a couple of months, it wouldn't make such a huge difference. But it's up to the way the working group operates. And by the way, there's been additional approaches from organizations outside of GS1 that are working on a bit of a different set of standards and are looking to somehow leverage OT. So there's quite a few things going on in terms of exploration, discovery, people learning how to use the tool, and really finalizing this standard as fast as it can be. And the latest being that everybody's trying to expedite it and get ready as soon as possible, so that we don't go into the next half of the year and wait for who knows which event for that to be done. But yeah, go ahead, Žiga. I jumped in without noticing.
The GS1 as a standard is being used by many companies already using OriginTrail. And one of the interesting things that you could read in the BSI report was that it's being used, the standards being used in the, I think it's SG10, if I'm not mistaken. So one of the standards for the G10 is being used to trace pharmaceuticals. So on one hand, we're actively participating in creation of the new standards like EPCIS 2.0. And on the other hand, the standards that are already firmly established are being used by the OriginTrail users. And also in addition to that, the Trace Alliance working group on supply chain interoperability and semantic web is also welcoming organizations that are essentially acting under the cloud of the GS1 organization. So definitely we're expanding in terms of how OriginTrail leverages GS1 standards, as well as how we are being activated within the working group of GS1, and on the same in the same kind of manner, we're also opening doors for GS1 member organizations to join the working group we launched under Trace Alliance.
Yeah,
So
somehow
GS1
everyone
member
that's
organizations. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, somehow everyone that's kind of using or we're working with, they all seem to be using GS1 somehow. So if anyone out there is to be looking for a technology that's compliant and is an easy on ramp, just FYI.
I'll pass that along in some other Telegram groups.
Hey, someone wanted us. Some folks wanted Jason and I to go hand out OriginTrail flyers. So maybe we should start doing that.
Yeah, we get some really weird requests in the community. Just leave it at that. All right, guys. Well, anything you want to close with today, or say in this bloody week we have, or in the markets, anything? Any final statements?
Yeah, just that stay with us. We're constantly and consistently updating you with new exciting things that are coming. We're meeting here almost every month with the two of you guys. Hopefully you boys can handle. We definitely have a lot of stamina, so hopefully we're going to be able to do this each month of this year. Definitely, I mean, I'm sure the next AMA is going to be a very exciting one. We have a lot of things in the roadmap to be covered in this month going forward. Now that we're accelerating the Polkadot introduction, definitely there's going to be a lot of fun updates there. And yeah, I think the main takeaway of this week would be that we should all focus or even double down on fundamentals. Fundamentals are essentially what counts. And OriginTrail is going to be very much in line also in the future with at least 3 core fundamentals: usability, neutrality, and inclusiveness. And adding to that is, a very, very or even orthodox bias towards working on adoption and the fundamentals. And it's really encouraging to see a lot of great contributions from the community. Also some good suggestions on how we can improve communications. So if you have any good suggestions in the future, please let us know. I think that would be all from my side. Branimir, Tomaž.
Yep.
I just wanna. Oh, sorry. I think I have some lag. Just to add to that, I want to say thanks to all of the people who have contributed, like with bugs, with issues, suggestions that you've seen on Discord, on all of the channels that we communicate. Really, that's always super helpful, because even though you might not think that maybe sometimes we're not so fast to respond, but we look at each and every one of those, and we use them to prioritize things on the development side, because that sometimes we do not see, as the network is quite big, we do not have eyes, and we should not have eyes on all over corners of the network. So when you do have an issue, please report it, let us know, or any sort of improvement proposal. It's super welcome. And yeah, thanks for being there and supporting the development.
Great.
I just saw that we have an anniversary next month. It's gonna be full 12 months. June was the first monthly office hour last year. So yeah, there you go.
Oh, all right. Wow.
We made it. We made it through a year. So congrats.
I'm gonna have to get some champagne for the next one then.
Yeah, I hear you.
Some of that whiskey that's getting tracked. We'll get some of that.
That's a good one.
All right, guys. Well, another great office hour. So thanks a bunch, and we'll be seeing you on Twitter and everything else. So take care and enjoy your day.
All right. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Trace on.